Hey guys, George Mesa, Third Eye Edify podcast. And I am finally back recording. This episode was essentially supposed to come out for the holidays, Samhain, Halloween. It didn't. And it's the way it goes. What are you going to do? Can't control everything. And I've been thinking a lot about it. And it's given me some time. I wrote an article or two on Substack and Patreon to kind of keep it going. I had a chance, and I never even really thought to do this until recently. I had a chance to kind of inject older episodes that are still very meaningful that may have been missed by a lot of my newer fans. And let's rock. You know, this is going to be my very last video for YouTube, Rumble, BitChute, anything that's not Patreon, Substack, or what will be coming in about a week. Everything will be available on my website as well. And for a subscription fee, you can have access to everything. So I'll talk more about that at the end because I don't want to muddy up what I'm thinking about with this playing cards. I always preferred bicycle. I guess they do have a certain feel to them. I think it's called the armor finish. What does it say? Hold on. It says something. Air cushion finish. There are other finishes, but the air cushion's good for magic tricks. It's good for shuffling. It gives you the feeling that it's something nice. I used to collect cards. I used to collect them like crazy. I've been collecting more, things of that nature. I guess lately in the form of maybe tarot decks. There's a lot of oracle decks right over here. I don't know if you can see any of them at all. Actually, no, probably not. But it's been, I've always loved it. I collected a lot of, not necessarily sports cards, but Marvel comic cards and DC comic cards. I have a lot of different sets of those from the very early 90s, and some of them might actually be from 1990. I'm sure a few of my viewers have heard or maybe even still have theirs. And I even had this collection of My Pet Monster cards that you could only get by buying Slurpees at 7-Eleven. And this one time I went with my dad super late. It must have been close to midnight. And they were phasing them out. And I didn't even get a Slurpee because it was almost midnight. I just wanted a drink, and a regular drink, that is. And the guy called me boss. It was the first time anyone ever called me boss. And I didn't understand. I was that young, And I said, why do you call me boss? And he said, that's just what you call somebody who's cool. I'm just like, yeah. He gave me the box, whatever was left. And it helped me finish my collection out. I have that. I have a lot of cards. I've always loved cards. There is something about cards. There is something about holding a deck of cards. It gets you the feeling like you're in charge. Much like maybe the Dungeon Master in Dungeons and Dragons. It's you. You have the power. And these cards, which may be considered something to play a game with, there's a lot more to them. I always thought that these were derived from tarot because there's less of them here. Tarot has 78, this has 52. Plus the Joker, which we will make very important mention of later. I've been under that impression for quite a while, as a matter of fact. But I've been aware of the standard playing card cartomancy. It's crossed my radar, but never in the form of this book by Olney H. Richmond. The Mystic Test Book, or The Magic of the Cards by Olney H. Richmond. It's a fascinating topic. And a lot of things were said in this book that really struck a chord with me, no pun intended, being the musician that I am. And my very first order of business after this final YouTube video will be to continue the music miniseries. I have not felt like I could finish it in a setting where just about anyone is free to watch or listen. Didn't feel comfortable to me for a lot of reasons. And it's unfortunate that these reasons have come up, but it's going to be it's going to be something special, I promise you. So if you've been following, please follow me out of, if you're watching this on YouTube, please find me somewhere else. I exist somewhere else. The website's probably the best. Why not make it the website? Any payments and or donations that will happen there will be direct and not, through a middleman, through another thing. If you pay on PayPal, if you pay on Patreon, it hits PayPal, it's another deduction, and then it hits me. So I'm looking to take this further. As a matter of fact, I've always wanted the third eye team. It's always been just me. Hopefully that happens. On with the music. Cartomancy. The religion of the stars is what it actually is. Reminds me of The Light of Egypt by Burgoyne, a book I highly recommend. It's always been a source of mystery. There's always these scenes in movies where the wise person, so to speak, has the cards, lays a few out, turns them, and what is it every time? Death, the devil, the tower. It's always the same, like, bad cards, right? But hopefully I've been able to dispel that on this show several times. I've flashed a lot of tarot cards. The symbology of them comes up a lot. And that's the nature of what this book is trying to say right off the bat. The very first thing mentioned is the Bible, the Old Testament, Revelations 10 and Revelations 2, I believe, which I didn't quite get as much detail out of. But that's it. It doesn't even put it all in plain English. It does put it in the non-King James translation. See my episode Unholy Trinities, I think it was number 13, for more information on that. It's the first thing he mentions. Not because he wants you to go read the Bible, but because he wants to be clear in stating that he believes this 52 plus Joker deck of cards is indeed the original Bible, and that it's far more suitable for understanding the nature of things, especially the stars and how they interact with us, than any book of written words will ever do. Symbology is what he was promoting. And tip of the iceberg here. Really, really some incredible stuff. This is the only image I can get of him. There is little to no information about this man. Only H. Richmond. I live in Richmond, Kentucky. So I thought, could this be? No. Richmond, Kentucky was named after Richmond, Virginia. So it has nothing to do with this place, actually. But he has nothing to do with the naming of any place called Richmond. It just happens to be his name. And I mean, it means rich man, rich moon even. But I wasn't going to take it any further than that. It's hard to find information on this person, which is very interesting. He is the hidden hand. He seems to know things that a lot of other people around his time knew. His claim is that this little book, this is the little book. This is the little book that is mentioned in Revelation 10. This is the book that is brought down by an angel. An angel who lands on the ground, on the earth, right foot upon the sea, left foot on the earth, holding a book. Very interesting stuff. This little book, according to him, is this deck of cards. The way you know them now, no alterations. And that is one of the most interesting things in this entire book. It comes early on, is that these cards have not been altered. The 5 of diamonds that you know is the same 5 of diamonds that will always be. The clothing of the king, the sword, the axe, whatever they're holding, it's not changing. The order of, I'm not even there. Hey, sorry guys. The order, the arrangement of the cards is significant, and it has not changed. It is rigid. It is firm. It will never change. I take the cards out again. This is the book. These are the pages. This is the little test book. Now why test book? It's a tester of faith. It's a testament. It's an Old Testament, perhaps the oldest. There's plenty of people that claim they invented playing cards. And as far as tarot, only Richmond says that there's too many cultural influences in one thing for it to be officially from somewhere. He doesn't believe it to be the official, word. He believes this was created in Atlantis 20,000 years ago. Now that number is pretty extreme. But as it's just finding truth wherever it hides, as is really the genuine motto of my show, I was starting to be convinced that this whole realm that we exist in is very young. And it's much younger than they want us to believe. I'm sure of that. As far as, Jurassic and all that stuff, Cretaceous, all that nonsense. Big Bang, right? Forget that. I'm talking about just a few thousand years old. But this is saying that 20,000 years ago in Atlantis, these cards were created to represent the stars and to tell the path of any person who dared to ask. Keeping of knowledge and revealing of truths. He mentions early on in the book that other than the North Pole, and he, along with many others around this time, this book is 1890 something, many other people clearly stated around this time that, I'm sorry, do I not have a year on this book right now? Oh, geez, sorry. I can't believe I didn't write down the date of this book. I usually have this information ready to go when I write these things. I'm sorry, guys. I'm pretty positive this is from around then, 1890-ish. So a lot of authors around this time were convinced that the North Pole is nothing like we think it is. That is indeed the magnetic center of this world. Much like I've shown on the show in the past. And I'm still very willing to believe that. But also that Atlantis was the only other place that mimicked it, because in the very center of Atlantis, 4 rivers met, north, south, east, west. And the same exact thing happened to the North Pole. As some of you, I'm sure, have seen in ancient maps. I'm sorry, I don't have an image of that right now. But then he states clearly, and this is all in the earlier part of the book, he just wants to get some things out of the way before he really thoroughly discusses the cards, and I want to bring that to you. That way you can be inspired to read it, or just know as much as you can about it through this episode. Edify, so to speak, yourself. He says that the tops of the Atlantean mountains are the Azores now. Go look up where the Azores are. It's a fair potential that Atlantis was there, if it was. Has no one looked down right there? I don't know. But it's not unbelievable. I'll say that much, as far as I'm concerned. Now, there's also a claim that Christ studied this, and that everyone did. Now, I don't know how far this can go, but there's often the mention of the 7 thunders in Revelation. These are the 7 planets at the time. So let's just keep going from here and find out what else we can find out. 52 cards, 52 weeks. United States, here's looking at you. It's possible that we're basically there, with D.C., Washington, D.C. being the joker, since it's actually not part of the 50-plus states. We kind of do have 52, actually. So we'll discuss that another time. 13 in each suite. That would be the 12 zodiac signs plus the sun. Now, it could be the 13 moons, but they don't factor as heavily into the reading of the cards. So perhaps this is more important for this perspective, for that to be 13 and not the 13 moons. I know there's a lot of Dali paintings that do this, Da Vinci, so it's very easy to see that. There's 4 suites, 1 for each season. And there's light and dark. There's 2 red, there's 2 black suites. This represents the sun and the moon. This is the yin yang. So all very sensible, all very obvious in my opinion. And potentially since the 14th century it's been called playing cards to gamify. The gamification of society is a very important topic that I discussed on the Universe podcast about 3.5 years ago. So I see gamification everywhere, and gamifying things that are not to be played with is a big factor in the past maybe 100 years. Playing cards, no exception. So, like I was saying, the tester of truth, the testament, only claims that test is the same word as taste. And in this book of Revelation, when the angel comes down with the little book, 1 foot down on each side. And of course, by the way, this could easily be the High Priestess, a card I flashed more than any other tarot card in this show. She's holding a book. She's holding the Torah. And it could be the little book. It could be the little test book. Test of faith, and so on. This book, it is said that to my taste, it was sweet as honey. And then I think it said that it made the belly uneasy or something like that, which I don't know how to interpret. Maybe one of you does. I'm not an expert. Funny that 14 is temperance, when the 14th century seems to be when playing cards were named. Playing cards. He had a little book. Very, very interesting. And is it not interesting that this could be so sacred that it has never been changed by anyone? Sure, you can go get Nightmare Before Christmas playing cards and so on. But overall, the patterns of the design of the number cards, ace through 10, it's pretty much, that's it. Very rigid. Very rigid. And the face cards, they're not changing that much, you know? Why kept so perfect? Proportions, symbols, clothing. There has to be a very special reason for this. And this might be that special reason. It's incredible to me that I haven't really had the chance to even hear this conversation yet. I'm going to mention and display the Joker for a moment, because I do want you to see the interesting little parallel here. Just happened to catch this. The Joker's going to play a much bigger part in my conversation in a moment, but I want to quickly point out, if you look carefully, the color one or the black and white one, we have 808, which is like the bicycle deck thing. And then we have 6 spades, 3 and 3, 303, 808, 3388. These are very important numbers. 33 easily being the Masonic number. And I think that it's worth mentioning that we have 3, we have another 3, we have another 8, we have another 8. That is 22 total. 22 is the master builder number. And on top of that, we get other dual numbers. So that's very unique and interesting to me. I have always wondered. And of course, we get dollar signs. Why wouldn't we? That's a whole different conversation for a different day, I think. Let's have a look at a few more cards just to kind of lay the groundwork before I talk any further here. So here we have kings throughout the years looking very similar. This particular King of Hearts is the Suicide King, and called because it looks like he's stabbing himself in the head. He's probably more of a hidden sword in this regard, but interesting that they never change. Queen of Diamonds will always look like this. The Jack of Spades will always look like this. The very iconic bicycle Ace of Spades is indeed the Vesica Pisces. I'm sure we could talk about this card for the rest of the night. Let's move right along. Now, I don't quite remember exactly what it had said, but for example, look at this. What do we get? We get 2 pillars on each side and a completion in the middle. 10 is the number of completion, but here we have spiritually risen in the middle, the higher middle one, and the lower middle one is still grounded in worldly things, in the physical. This is a complete person. It's a very good card to pull, in other words. On the opposite spectrum, we have this. 5 of anything is always in an X pattern. Did you ever really think about this being an X? I have not. Until recently. 7 of clubs. Spiritually enlightened, but not financially. You're getting there. The pillars aren't as thick as they are with 9 and 10, but at the top, in the middle, we see that it is rising. It's ascending spiritually, which often affects how much time you have to actually become something worldly, goods-wise. You spend all your time becoming a philosopher, but you have nothing to, you're broke on the streets. Perhaps a similar feature of someone like myself, who is looking to find everything hiding in every corner, but there's only so much time. And I have 3 kids. And I technically have 5. And as I've mentioned on the show before, and it's essentially the healer's paradox. You know that this is a need that you have to do, and even asking for something in return is a lot. For me personally, it weighs on my conscience. I don't like to do that. Maybe I'm a good old 7. I imagine someone who knows this would say that. I have a feeling. So, there's a few other things to mention. I mean, cards have an interesting history. You know, in World War II, apparently there were map decks where you would split the card in half, draw a map on it, on the inside, put the cards back together. You could pass a deck of maps. It's a great way to hide things. Everyone's got playing cards in wartime. And there was even a fireproof card from NASA, which I guess if you wanted to re-enter the atmosphere, which I don't buy at all, you wouldn't burn up. I don't know. Makes no sense. Ace of Spades, made popular by that Motorhead song, was widely used in Vietnam. And the first Gulf War, as a matter of fact, where soldiers believed the enemy feared them. It seems to have been disproven, but it still, at the very least, would bring comfort. They would leave the Ace of Spades everywhere to show that U.S. was there. You know, USA, we were there. So now, a long time ago, I was doing a lot of music research, and I always wondered about the circle of the year not being a perfect circle of 360 degrees, right? The number of days in a year are technically 365.24. That's 365 plus 1/4, right? And 52 weeks in a year, exactly 52 weeks is exactly 364 days. So we get an extra day and a quarter. What is that? It's the Joker, the Fool, the Trump card, the Jester. These are all names for the Joker. The Joker adds the exact amount of time needed to make all 53 cards equal 1 year. The final Joker card having a far smaller value than 1 week, of 1 1/4. And interesting that when I worked out how equal temperament in the music world works, that circle is 365.04. It could have a huge implications, and I don't have, that's not what this episode is about, but if you have questions, ask, and I will answer in whatever format I can, whether it be an article or a video. So I found this to be very significant because right now, I have a feeling, now I'm just sitting pretty in the United States right now, not on the coastline. I don't feel like I'm in a like a dangerous place as far as bombs dropping, just to be totally honest now about how I feel about all those things. But I have a feeling wherever you live, that Donald Trump is part of your newsfeed, even if you don't want it to be. Between the tariffs and all this other stuff, he's on the radar. And coming into the end of the year here, things seem to be heating up in a lot of different ways. Now, I'm not going to go into the things now, but picture this. If indeed the Joker is the trump card, and if indeed its actual value is 1.25, 1.25 day, or in this term, let's just call it 1.25. He, as of January 1st of 2026, I'm filming this November 13th, 2025. As of December 1st, he will have served one full term plus a quarter now of his second term. Trump himself has been in office for 1.25 terms. And his card value is 1.25. And the United States has 52 states, plus a Joker. And he's there now. He's in the place that the Joker would be. I find this to be extremely significant. I don't know why, but something's changing. And I might even have a whole episode on it very soon with our good friend, the Ronin Experience. Shout out to you. And did I not mention this? The Ronin Experience recently interviewed someone who was doing incredible work, excavating tons of not just rare, but unheard of artifacts in Mexico that are dating back as far as 20,000 years. This stands right up to Atlantis making this deck of cards 20,000 years ago. Nothing but symbols. It's incredible. And there's something to be said for that. So, wow. Yeah, the Ronin Experience, I'm going to have that man on here again real soon. It will definitely be an exclusive to talk about the Roaring 20s, which we are now in. You read about it when you're growing up, and now suddenly we're in our own Roaring 20s. And we could be driving straight head first into another depression of sorts. It's going to look different this time, but it's something's coming. Let's leave it at that. I think that's a lot of information. So let's move on to the other thing I wanted to talk about here, because clearly this is about the gamification of things that should not be games. And what in the world can you think of, other than now playing cards, that definitely should not be a game? This would be the Ouija board. What else can you think of that has as much divisiveness in what it should be used for, what it can be used for, who should actually be selling it, and why? Shouldn't you just make your own spirit board, witch board, whatever you want to call it? This heart-shaped planchet has been a staple of spooky times and all kinds of weird stuff. And whose fault is this? I mean, there's a lot to it. It's an old thing, and we'll talk about what the origins might be. But this game, so to speak, was patented by Elijah Bond, February 10th, 1891. And this was until this person here, Pearl Lenore Curran, famously, in quotes, channeled Patience Worth through the board. Wrote some novels about it. Very often criticized for it. I can't prove any of it. The person that helped patent this thing was Helen Peters Noseworthy. And she helped patent this and called it Ouija. She said that it was spelled out because she was a medium. She said she successfully spelled out the word Ouija. And that it meant good luck. When do you say good luck? When someone's about to play a game of any kind, or even just play a gig, good luck, like, thanks. But do you say good luck? Does a Ouija board tell you good luck? It doesn't make any sense. This is just another way to get people to start thinking about it like a game. And again, I'm referencing back to Unholy Trinities, and an older episode of mine where one simple thing can change the minds of millions or even billions of people about something. This is not a toy. This is not something to play with. And now Hasbro, who got it from that other company that they are also, Parker Brothers, they own Ouija board. They make Ouija boards, mass production Ouija boards. It's kind of psychotic. It's very frustrating. Even back when I was young, I never wanted to use one. ever. I just felt very weird about it. And I did once or twice, and it just felt like the other person was, I don't know. Any of you actually used one with another person? Let me know. I never used one with somebody who I trusted enough to know that neither of us moved it. And using it on your own, it's hard. You got to be really in the moment, focused, quiet, much like I have this moment right now. I've got a sleeping baby right over there. Thankfully, much like my very first episode. Can you believe what just happened? I can't believe it. My very, very first episode, which was not supposed to be my first episode, I pressed record. I didn't have good lighting because I had my, who is now 4-year-old son, sleeping right in front of me over here. So I didn't want to be too loud. I didn't want to be too bright. I know this baby's going to sleep, so the lights are on. I don't care. But my first episode on YouTube, I had a son sleeping right in front of me. My last YouTube episode, my just over 1-year-old daughter is now sleeping right over there. It's something. I have felt that this is quite a journey so far, and I'm really just beginning, guys. So your energy, your eyes, your hearts, by watching, by telling other people, this is the best gift. If you're a paying supporter of this show, the few of you that are out there, you are just magical to me. And I hope to bring more really, really soon. I'm not just leaving YouTube to do less. I'm leaving YouTube to do more. I feel very restricted here. Anyway, I wonder sometimes about, what could happen, right? I think a lot of people might think of this, which is kind of silly, but I mean, look, you this is not a toy. You shouldn't play with it. And the way that the Ouija board is set up here, I don't know. Just the nature of the way it is, I think there's other ways to set it up where you don't necessarily have the English language. See, this is what only Richmond is talking about. He's saying this is an insufficient and insignificant way to pass information along. They're not going to speak English to you half the time. I just don't expect that, For it to be in English is such a pompous, stupid thing to me. It's as stupid to me as naming a frequency of the letter A or D sharp in music. Like, this frequency is D sharp. Like, okay, so the frequency right next to it that we don't use in equal temperament, that's nothing. It's silly. A deck of cards with a planchet to move around. That might be something interesting. I just thought of that right now, actually. So where did this come from? Where did this whole, this whole idea that the board can give you something, whether it's one person or multiple, where does it all come from? It seems like this, and I normally don't just take a picture, the first Wikipedia picture, but I couldn't find any other images of this practice that I was unaware of until now. It's called Fuji, not Japanese, not Mount Fuji, but Fuji. I'm doing my best to make the pronunciation here, from the Song Dynasty of China. We're talking about as old as 420 AD or CE, depending on how you look at the years at this point. Apparently one is secular and one is sacred. I did not know that. AD being the sacred one, CE being the secular way to talk about years. BCE or CE. It's funny how things just suddenly change. And this is the norm, and I guess you're just unaware of it. It's interesting. Interesting. So this was, again, Fuji, Fugi. Now, how do we pronounce Ouija? We say Ouija. It's nearly the same word. You remove the A and you put the I at the end. And the A sounds like an I in the Ouija anyway. It sounds like this is the origin of the word Ouija. Messages were conveyed by deities, ancestors. And this is called automatic writing, which is a term I didn't know was associated with this. They used a stylus. Now, we're using styluses all the time. I don't personally use one, but that's just the preference. People pick them up and use them on their phones and their tablets all the time. I thought the earliest term for stylus was the needle of a record player. Tell me if you thought the same. It goes much further back. And what they would do is they would set up sand or incense ash, place it in a planchet. There's that word again, but it's being used differently this time. And they would allow the deity or ancestor to write in the ash with the stylus that they were holding. Now, to end here, what else could this be? Oh, I lost myself again. Apologies. Slightly different than the way I used to do it. What else could this be? Let's end with this now. Is there another way that people possibly used to use some kind of stylus writing device? What about cave paintings, cave drawings, cave carvings? There's a lot of talk, and I don't know how much I believe. There's a lot of talk of them being very old. That's possible. There's a lot of talk of the time period that they were done. The art was not that good. Perhaps this was another way to channel something special, something ancestral, something more. And through the channeling, the carvings were revealed, much like a stylus in Fuji, much like the planchet in Ouija. Spirit boards. Cave walls could have been the spirit boards. It's just a thought. I've got plenty more thoughts, but I think I've covered what I wanted to here. I'm very relieved to finally record this. I've been waiting 2 weeks. It's a long time for me to hold on to an episode, but not as long as that music miniseries. And let me end with saying YouTube is nice, but it's Google. I don't think we're supposed to like Google. Just throwing it out there. And the more that we continue to use Google, the less of a chance we have of removing ourselves from it. So I hope to be inspirational after the episode information, but more importantly that I'm leaving Google and so should you. It's time that we got away from this now. YouTube is a very, very good tool for information, but it's a heavily monitored tool for information. Is there anything else to say? And even if you're using a VPN, you still have to be logged in. You can use it as a guest, but most people don't. And if you want to be putting episodes and stuff, you have to be on Google. You need a Google account. I used my other email to make my Bass Player University page, which I have on YouTube. It just suddenly died. It was doing okay, by common people standards. It was doing okay. The mailing list that I called people to through it was building. And then overnight, it just completely flatlined. Dead. Now, my show here has done it as well, but I figured I'd keep doing it no matter what, right? But it's time to get rid of Google. It's doing nothing for me. I'm pretty sure it's never done much for anybody. Google Maps, Google Search, Google Meet, Google Docs, Google everything. There are other ways. Telegram satisfies almost all of the needs of the Google stuff to be just as a quick, like you can go to Telegram now and not pay for it. And you can do almost anything you'd like and everything you share stays. I'm not understanding why people are using Google Drive anymore at this point. I've heard people saying, what are you using email for at this point anymore? Agreed. We have to find ways around all of this stuff, and we're going to need to do it as soon as possible. So by following me to my website, by keeping up with me on Patreon and Substack, you will find out just exactly what I'm talking about through the help of some amazing minds in this space. Because Third Eye Edify is not going to be just me. It's going to be a crew of people that just want to make sure that human beings can be human as possible for the rest of foreseeable eternity. And we can take the information of the test book and perhaps utilize it to its fullest. Thank you, everyone. I hope to see you at my website. I hope to see you at Patreon and Substack. I will probably have some kind of an announcement, like 2-minute announcement vid on here, and that will really be my official last thing I ever put here. But as far as episodes, this is the very last time that I will ever be putting anything on YouTube or Rumble or BitChute, but I have a feeling almost none of you are seeing me there at all. So that's the way it goes. What are you going to do? Thank you, everyone. I'll see you next time.